A report by World Food Programme (WFP) shows that 26% of forest loss in the Western Area Pennesula National Park. The loss is as a result of human activities, including encroachment and charcoal burning. This situation has been described by environmentalists as worrisome for the Western area and required urgent actions by relevant authorities. Well, for further discussion, I am joined in the studio by the Executive Director of Green Sini, Joseph Rahal. Good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Princess.
Director of Corporate Services, Guma Valley Water Company, Ali Kaba. Good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
We are expecting Senior Public Relations Officer from Environmental Protection Agency and also the Director of Watchdet and Sumana Soko. Well, to set the basis of this conversation, let's bring you a report of the findings from the study by the WFP sent for us by our reporter Ibrahim Samra.
The Western Area Pennesula National Park occupies approximately 18,000 hectares of Sierra Leone's western region and lies south of the national capital, Freetown. It has a predominantly equatorial with monsoonal rainfall, and its habitat comprised lowland tropical moist forests. Despite providing essential environmental services to the capital Freetown, particularly the only viable source of water, Guma Valley Dam, the report found out that the Western Area Pennesula Park is critically under threat due to human activities driven by land grabbing, charcoal burning, quarrying, and marijuana cultivation enabled by weak law enforcement and corruption. Head of Programs, World Food Programme, William Hopkins, said the survey was conducted to identify areas experiencing vegetation and forest cover loss within the Western Area Pennesula National Park from April 2023 up to mid-January 2024.
So far, we have conducted 4 analyses to see the state of the forest. Since our analysis started, we have noticed that 26% of the forest has already been lost, and this increases the risk of water shortages, landslides and floods. So we're working closely with the government and all stakeholders to see how we can prevent more deforestation in the Western area.
Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Joe Abdullahi, accepted the report findings, stating that government was concerned and there is the political will.
As a ministry, our first thing is we need to face reality and see things as they are. And the reality is that the encroachment is increasing. The encroachment is putting people at risk. And as a ministry, our first objective is to stop that encroachment and at some point put measures in place to discourage encroachment in the Western Area Peninsula National Park.
WFP Country Director, World Food Programme Country Director, Yvonne Fuston, said the aim of the report was to provide up-to-date data on forest cover loss in the Western Area Pennesula National Park, stating most detected forest loss within the national park was likely generated by uncontrolled human-induced forest fires and land clearing. Western Area Pennesula National Park hosts the primary source of water in the capital Freetown and other water catchment areas. Ibrahim Samura, Freetown.
Many thanks to our own Ibrahim Samura for that report. Well, we've got the basis of the situation, and I'm happy that Mr. Rahal was part of the ceremony. You've listened to the data. You have been an environmentalist on many campaigns. How serious is the situation?
Thank you very much, Princess. I think this situation is very grave from our perspective. If you will just do a quick projection of how things stand now and how things will come in the near future, my simple arithmetic tells me that if at the rate at which things are going, less than 15 years we'll be losing the entire forest. Less than 15 years. And that's how serious it is. If we continue at this rate, we are worried, not only Green Scenery, but we have a whole lot of a campaign group that have been really monitoring what is going on. And I've also been engaging various stakeholders, including the Parliament and other stakeholders, and Ministry, NPA, and so forth, just to make sure that we work together and bring about some level of check to the process.
This did not only start now. There has been call for action, call to order, and we have been in several campaigns. What's the missing link?
The biggest problem and challenge is that we are not forthright to enforce the laws. There is a law protecting the forest. There is a law, there's a gazette, and I have a gazette with me here, telling us exactly the locations of every beacon in that forest. So it is covered by law. It is protected by law. So anybody going into that forest to do something different than conservation, then that person is going against the law. Right? But the law is not biting. Those who are supposed to be implementing, enforcing it, they are not doing it. And that's the reason why this is happening. Basic is enforcement of law. The second is our own very attitude. As citizens, you know that that place is a protected area. If you give me one square foot of that place, I tell you I don't want to construct anything there. Our attitude is just not right. We see every space in the forest or in that space as land for construction or for doing something else. That's wrong. That attitude we must change, and we must educate ourselves to change that attitude. That's the second thing. The third thing is wealth. People just think that the forest there is about making money. So we allow construction companies to go in and take rocks, mining rocks. It's wealth creation. Okay? Of course, there are communities, when they see construction companies taking rocks out of it, those small people will also go in there and do their own little rock mining. Or they go in there and do other things like the jamba farming. I mean, we know that there's a whole lot of cannabis farm in the forest. So these are the things. The sooner we don't have the enforcement to ensure that the law takes its course, a whole lot of other gambit things come around, and that's where the political will should be. I'm happy that the minister said in that meeting that there's a political will. I'm also now challenging the minister to ensure that that political will is backed by the enforcement of the law.
So, which layers did your campaign target? Which layers did your campaign target over the years, minus government and other players?
We have worked with practically everyone, from the communities right to the levels of people who are policymakers. Recently, we are just engaging the lawmakers. So there's no layer that we have not met. But that does not mean we'll get tired. No, we are not going to get tired. We want to make sure that people see reason to change. And more so now that we have this climate change and there's this big dilemma of the problems of climate change. We are feeling it in Freetown. Water issue is a big issue, right? We have worked with practically all the layers, my sister, and we continue to work with them without hesitation, without bad blood, we just want to make sure we understand each other, and together we work for the protection of the forest.
Is it the same message that you keep on campaigning with?
Well, people, normally we tell ourselves that we are the prophetic voices, right? Way back in the 90s, we raised the issue of climate change. We are rebuffed. Climate change is here, it's getting to people. Way back we said there's going to be a threat on Guma Valley because the forest is going to go. Now it's here. We have been consistent prophetic voice, where we tell these things, we make utterances about them, and they come to light at the end. We've said in the past that rocks will fall if we allow deforestation. Rocks are falling. We said in the past that it will flood, and the city is flooding every time. So it's prophetic voice. We've said this over and over, but it's not changing, right? Maybe we've not used the right strategies yet, but maybe we have not received the kind of government that will put real seriousness behind the protection of the forest, but also protection of other forests around the country.
Continue to stay with us, Joseph Rahal, Executive Director of Green Scene, where I also have the Director of Corporate Services, Guma Valley Water Company, Ali Kaba. Well, this situation, you have raised this issue, and we are more like a victim. So, how will this report salvage your situation?
Thank you very much. Guma primarily relies on the forest to collect, store, and treat and supply water to Freetown. So basically, over the years, we have been collaborating, serving as whistleblowers for the deforestation that is primarily taking place in the Western Area Peninsula Park. Now we have all the water catchments that in the Western Area Park, the Western Area Peninsula Forest, including the park, about 48 catchments in those park. And so during the rains, we collect water from the rivers that are inside the Western Area Peninsula Park, and these are the water that we use to supply to Freetown. So basically, if the forest is depleted as it is now, Guma will be, there will be no water supply. According to the report that was launched last week, if the rate of deforestation continues at this pace by 2030, there will be no water supply in those rivers. So basically Freetown will have to go without water supply. So this is why Guma, over these years, we have been serving as whistleblowers. We do not have the enforcing mandate to take people out of the forest, but our voice can be heard. And so recently, government formed the interministerial committee that has been looking into the deforestation issue. And also, we have seen deployment of police and military personnel, but the issue is still happening. So basically, we are alarmed at the rate of deforestation. In April 2022, the president visited the Guma Dam to see the rate of deforestation. He made some proclamations that all housing permits in those areas should stop. But the situation is still ongoing. So, as I said, we are alarmed at the current state of deforestation. Even close to the Guma treatment plant, it's just a stream that separates us from a community called Banga Farm. So now there are cats and dogs straying into the treatment plant, something that was unheard of several years ago, and you cannot monitor the whole of the forest. Because it's a very big area. So once those things like dog, cats stray to a water facility, the issue of pollution comes in, the issue of liquid solid waste comes on. So I mean, for now the situation is not like that, but I mean it has the potential to become that. For now we are grappling with jamba, marijuana planting. I mean, these people use fertilizers that have hazardous chemicals that impact the water supply, so making the treatment very, very difficult. The tree, the stone mining, the quarrying, all these impact on the water supply. I mean, making the treatment very, very difficult. So, I mean, these are the issue. And once the forests are depleted, there's landslide, the potential for landslide, flooding, and the sedimentation into the rivers, because these three act as barriers for when the rain comes, they control the flow of water, making the water quality very good, the quantity very good. I mean, so once this deforestations continue, all those situations will reverse, and like we have been saying, it's a threat to the water security for the western area.
But you can't just be relaxed that you don't enforce, you don't have enforcing powers. No mitigation measures by Guma?
No, I mean, like I said, we bring the issue to the attention of the government. The government forms an interministerial committee. Now, every institution has its own mandates. Ours is to supply water to the residents of Freetown. You have the Ministry of Land, they issue out lands. You have the Ministry of Environment. They are there to protect the environment.
But if your infrastructure is being threatened.
Yeah, that's why we have been making noise and bringing the issue to the attention of the government, because the Guma infrastructure is threatened. And that is not only the Guma's infrastructure. Guma is a state-owned enterprise, and it is the property of the government of Sierra Leone and the people of Sierra Leone. So, I mean, it should be protected. I mean, once we lost the forest, because, like I said, we collect water from about 6 rivers in those forests. Once, I mean, the forest is gone, the amount of rainfall in those areas will reduce. I mean, the stream will go dry very early into the dry seasons. I mean, so I mean, the issue of water supply will become much more difficult than it is presently. So that's why we have been calling on the responsible agencies to take action and ensure that people do not encourage currently we are producing about between 75 million to 70 million and 75 million daily. I mean, that is not enough to meet the demand of the Western area presently, because we should be producing about 190 million liters of water on a daily basis. So, because being that the facility is over 55, 57 years old, I mean, and the population is going up, we have not been able to match, I mean, the demand-supply issue. But we have been making strides to ensure that people in Freetown have water on a daily basis. We have divided the city into 3, doing rationing on a daily basis: area east, area west, and area central. Ensure that each of these areas at least have some amount of water, say 6 to 8 hours of water supply on a daily basis. So that's how we've been supplying water to Freetown.
Okay, many thanks. Ali Kaba from Guma Valley Water Company continues to stay with us. Mr. Hal, Mr. Kaba mentioned a very important point, that is the formation of the interministerial committee to look at issues of encroachment. What do you think about the formation and their activeness?
Well, the formation is positive from my perspective, because I've been fortunate to be in other situations where there are interministerial bodies. For instance, the Ministry of Lands and Country Planning has an interministerial task force that works on land issues. So the establishment of an interministerial committee is really good. The caution will be is that, you know, everybody should put their time into it and dedicate, that time. And once decisions are coming from that committee, it must be executed. I think that's and if there is a way, I normally campaign for the presence of civil society in those big groups, because they bring to the fore and into the conversation, real issues that are touching the hearts and minds of people. I will really also talk that if there is possibility of bringing few civil society into that mix, I will encourage that. But I think it's really good that it is done. It's a show of political will at this time, and I will really want to encourage that it continues.
What has been achieved from their formation? Because it's not this year or last year that it has been formed.
I am not quite aware of when it was formed. I should say the truth, but the fact that it has been established is a good thing. But how it should work, should be encouraged, and the result that it should get should also be encouraging, and it should promote the protection of the forest. That's paramount.
Continue to stay with us, Joseph Raham. At this point in time, let me bring in the Director of WashNet, Ansumana Soko, who has also been a long-time campaigner on issues of water and the environment. Good afternoon and welcome to Public Square.
Good afternoon, Princess, and thanks
for
for having
you on the show.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. There is a desperate situation as we speak. The forest cover loss on the western area, Pennesula Park. This is very serious. You have been a campaigner, and studies show 26% forest loss. What does this mean?
It means, it's a significant burden on the already available water sources. And water being a very vulnerable resource, we must be able to equally understand that it is equally endangered, especially with the rapid urbanization and expansion, happening across the board. And this is also in the midst of very challenging policy, institutional as well as regulatory enforcement processes. We know all of these reform processes over time have yielded dividend, but most significantly how they are equally translating into greater results, that informs practice at the level of protecting these water sources. Interestingly, at the time when we did our water catchment assessment, we came to realize that 79% had already dried up, and that was done in April. And imagine April, not too far from the dry season, not too far from the rainy season, we already saw catchments being dried up. And the 21% that had water in them, we already had, 79% of them not having protective forest covering, which means they are very much volatile to evaporation as well as contamination, along the way. Guma Valley's water supply drive over the period for the past 10 to 13 years, they used to supply 93 million liters of water, for example, to the western area. And now you talk about 75 millions of liters being supplied. That means 18 million is already lost, due to this very serious threat, on our water bodies. And if you translate that into percentage basis, it will mean that 19% of the supply base of Guma Valley has reduced. And this is happening in the midst of a very challenging infrastructure that Guma Valley is operating. For example, it is very aging. They will tell you for sure the system was built for up to 400,000 people. And if we do not fully implement the measures, yes, the interministerial committee is very much important, to be set up as a show of government willingness to be able to ensure that solutions are brought forward. But then if we move beyond the business as usual approach to be able to ensure that first we protect the green belt and be able to ensure that, people are not encroaching on protected areas as well as endangering water sources, we are able to equally enforce, measures that are bringing people to book, including people in higher places. Because at the time when we did our assessment, a particular individual who was head of an environmental entity in this country was already found having a mansion in one of the Guma Valley treatment plants, proposed treatment sites. And so it was very difficult for policy, for the policy reform processes that we sought, to have happened. And so we are very much optimistic that with the interministerial committee, we should be able to have results that translate into more practical actions that are seeking to protect these very vulnerable resources.
Yes, you mentioned protection of sources. That is very important, especially for Guma. And Mr. Rahal also delved into the issue of enforcement, which is lacking.
Absolutely. Yes, we have reviewed very aging legislations over time, including the Guma Valley and Salwako Acts, and then the introduction of new legislations like the National Water Resources Management Agency, Act, which came in existence in 2017. The interesting part of it is that the the National Water Resources Management Agency is there to regulate interventions around raw water use, and management of its resources. How are we now ensuring that we foster more of a stronger interministerial coordination and collaboration to be able to ensure that as EPA works with the sector, the NPAA is also pulling strings with the rest of the other partners, just so that we are not only delivering, in protecting the environment, but we are equally generating very good lessons that could be learned across the partnership, because we are coordinating, we are speaking to each other, and we are equally taking actions, with a unified kind of step. Because what happens most times is that one entity can take a step that is not, in the nuance of the other, and so by the time you see the next entity goes to the same players, and then it begins to place government on a very funny light, because we are singing and dancing at various levels, at various tones. But then if we are coordinating, it becomes easier to be able to ensure that we provide a level of seriousness and be able to ensure that central leadership is being provided, to deal with the growing and emerging challenges.
Okay, continue to stay with us, and Sumama Soko. Mr. Rahal, the report also highlighted the issue of charcoal burning. How could that be addressed?
Before coming to that, my sister, I think Ansu spoke about the laws and the reason why. Yes, and the reason why I think the interministerial committee will be important. I think that establishment should be able to harmonize the laws. We have different laws sitting in different institutions and different MDAs. Some of them are contrary to each other. Some of them are conflicting each other. But if that body will now sit down and say, okay, let's look at all the laws, and let's see how we can harmonize this. That's one significant role of that body. Once it is harmonized, City Council will not say, they are the players here, or Ministry of Lands will not say, we are the landowners here, so that should not be happening, or EPA or NPA. It is now harmonized, and everybody is talking from one plate. Okay, that's important. Coming back to your question of the issue of charcoal burning. Charcoal burning has two sides of it. One, the issue of introducing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is also an issue, but also deforestation, because for you to get the charcoal, you have to cut down the trees from the forest. So that is leading to deforestation in itself. But there is something driving that. There's a driver. And the driver normally is maybe livelihood issue, poverty. Right? I mean, I sit down by this mammoth of, resources, the forest. I see, each day I see firewood, in my dream. Okay, and I don't have a single penny. I have to make sure my children are going to school. I have to make sure food is on the table. Definitely, somebody is going to that forest to do something. It could be rock mining, it could be cutting down trees for charcoal, or even for the purpose of firewood. So livelihood is key, right? And how government will manage that to ensure that protection is done. Of course, we visited the lawmakers and they said ignorance of the law is no excuse, so the law is there, everybody should fall in line and they should be able to, not to go to the forest. But reality is that people are hungry. People don't have the means to survive. The only means they can have to survive is to go into that forest, encroach a little bit, to burn their charcoal and bring bread to the food to the table. So we need to concentrate. Maybe we need to really think about how we can interface all of this in our plans. How do we take care of people who are, small stone miners? They are there every day. The charcoal burners, those who are going to the forest for firewood. How do we manage that around the peninsula so that we take their attention? The whole issue is taking their attention off the forest and getting them into something else. Okay, it can be through education, through sensitization, and even support to initiatives that will increase their earning ability or their ability to move into something else.
Okay, continue to stay with us, Joseph Gahad. Ali Kaba, Ansumana has further laid your situation bare. So at strategic level, what's the thinking around addressing some of these issues?
Well, the issue of addressing the deforestation issue is not totally in the hands of Guma Valley. Like I said, we have different players in the mix. The Interministerial Committee consists of over 13 government agencies: the Internal Affairs, Ministry of Defense, Environment, Lands, Works, local government, so many agencies. Now, they started work in 2021, and they came out with a report that was tabled before the president last year, a very damning report, which stated that about over 1,000 households or houses in the Western Area Park should be demolished. We are still, that has been tabled to President last December. We are waiting execution of those, the implementation of that action. But this is not the first time such reports have been tabled. In 2015 also, around the Western Area Peninsula, survey was done by another committee. Similar reports were presented 2015 now. It's about 9 years. These recommendations are still on the table. Like I said, we are beneficiaries of whatever action that government takes to protect the forest, because we rely on the forest for the water that we collect, store, treat, and send to the people of the Western area. So basically, we rely on the goodwill of other players to ensure that we have water to supply to the people of Freetown.
So, at the moment, what is your assessment of water catchment areas?
The reports are there. Just last week, the FAO or LWFP tabled their reports that, and the findings were that over 420 hectares of land, forest land the forest cover has been depleted. That's over 1,037 acres of land. That's a very huge area. Like I said, from the number 2 end coming to the Guma Dam along the Guma Trail, it is less than 500 meters, say, from between here and the Dwazak Junction, if I would say. That's how very near the people are not very close to the Guma Dam. And since the number 2 issue started around 2018, 2019, Guma has been very vocal, but the rate at which the construction of houses and the deforestation is taking place is very alarming. the whole area, and that area has been I marked by Guma for the construction of a second of a dam to capture the spill during the season. By August, September, the dam is full, and all the water that comes into the dam once again to the spills away to the number 2 river. We want to capture those water around the number 2 community, but the location that was I marked for the construction of that dam is now a massive building site. I mean, so these are the issues that we have to contend with. Even in 2018, 2019, feasibilities were already being done around that area. The Ministry of Land, Water Resources then issued out tender for feasibility study for that area. I mean, that's the situation. So for whatever action government and its partners take to ensure that the forest is protected, I mean, Guma will welcome those actions. Also, last week, a water fund was launched by the Vice President, Dr. Mohamed Jule Jallo, at the Guma Dam. I mean, this is an initiative to have some basket fund for the protection of the catchment, the water catchment. Like all these issues that we listed, the ills of the forest depletion leads to flooding, landslide, poor quality of water. I mean, reduce quantity of water. I mean, all these are the issues that we are highlighted by the CIS as the primary reason for the setting up of the water fund. So I mean, they want to empower the game guards at this NPAA, the National Protected Area Authority, and guards so that they could be better trained, equipped to handle this issue of deforestation that is currently taking place.
Okay, continue to stay with us, Ali Kaba. I go over to Ansumana. So this is the situation of the Western area. It is what it is. And before you join us, a report by our colleague highlighted the minister, as usual, reiterating political will. But as a nation, what can be done differently to address this?
Yeah, what can be done differently? I think we just need to accept that we must move unusual, because we have done things in our comfort zones, and we have not actually moved beyond that comfort. Few of those things we can do is like we have all talked about, coordination. Coordination is key, because once you coordinate, you are equally reducing leakages in the resources that is being spent on addressing some of the major issues. The second is financing. Financing is very important. Yes, the issues are enormous and that demands are increasing, except that supply is very limited and not matching to the growing and emerging needs. How do we now ensure that we are able to generate, whether it is own source revenue or donor-based support, to be able to ensure that we get water catchment protection, ramped up, or equally the delivery of water services increased? We must be able to ensure and accept the fact that there is every need for accelerated financing to be able to do so. The other is to be able to ensure that the financing models are equally innovative, because we cannot have models that are not sustainable. If, for example, we are to talk about increasing sector allocation, and that a particular set of mining royalties, for example, or percentage from the mining royalties are directed to water catchment protection, as well as making sure that water availability is there, then it becomes more sustainable to be able to ensure that people don't get sick or die because they do not have access to safe or clean drinking water. The other approach could also be ensuring that we are able to equally deliver programs based on our own revenue generation potentials. Because most times we design programs and anchor them on donor-based support, and by the time the financial year ends, the donor-based supports are not coming through. And then we come back with the same reasons and excuses, and then the same annual plans for the following financial year, we bring in the same set of activities. How are we now ensuring that we are able to well target our planning process based on our own domestic revenue generation potentials in a way that is more feasible to the context that we operate? because this way we are able to ensure that the citizens' money are working for it. I mean, like, it's working for them, and to be able to ensure that we are able to do so in the most efficient manner as possible. Accountability across the board is important. We must be able to drive accountability even with the very small resources that we have. Yes, indeed, the sector is constrained with resources, but how about we efficiently and judiciously utilize the very small that is coming in to be able to ensure that we are able to show results? Let's show results so at least we are able to generate more evidence as to why we need more. And that way we are able to equally spotlight many issues and be able to ensure that there are potentials if in fact we have more resources to be able to accelerate and expand access.
Continue to stay with us, and Sumana Soko. In case you are just joining us, this is Public Square, your program that brings you conversation on topical issues. And in this edition, we are looking at Freetown under threat with huge loss of Western area Pennesula cover. Well, we're going for a short break. When we come back, we'll read some of your text messages. Now for some of your text messages. The first one says, forest cover loss is a huge problem. It's a danger waiting to happen, and we cannot wait for this. Mr. Rahal, you were an advisor for the minister in charge of environment and climate change combined with the Ministry of Land and Country Planning. What could be your statement that can bring revival in protecting the Western Area Peninsula Forest, knowing that community people are already listening? He said this is a sad reality. Guma, you can't just fold your arms and wait for other people. Is it because some of the encroachments are done by your people? I agree that livelihood and other socio-economic issues are underlined, but with political will, that could be looked at. Forest cover loss is no small issue. I am happy that the SLBC is raising a voice with those environmentalists I see on your panel. Princess, I think, and Sumana has made some serious recommendations that could be further looked into. Those are some of the text and messages. I start with this.
Well, that assertion that I have served as advisor to the Minister of Environment is not correct. Neither have I served as advisor to the Minister of Lands. However, we work, my organization is part of what we call the Technical Working Group in the Ministry of Lands. And my role, our role there has been to change the way land issues are being done around the country, especially when it comes to customary land rights. And we have been, over the years, have been able to campaign, and today we have 2 new land laws, far away from the Cap 122, the infamous Cap 122 that was actually impacting negatively on landowners. So in terms of advising the Minister of Land about that, is not our remit. Our remit has been just specifically how do we make sure things are changing for landowners. I mean, in terms of the law, which we have now actually achieved. At the moment, what is happening in that ministry is that there is a project, and we are not part of it. We are also just helping out the ministry to make sure it is well implemented due to the presence of civil society as accountability issue. But there is now, the ministry is trying to implement the very laws that have been promulgated. What we do now is to monitor the effect of those laws, especially on people who were discriminated. For instance, people referred to as outsiders, like the Creoles. How would that be affecting them? How would it be affecting women? How will it be affecting other people who are vulnerable? That's what we'll be doing as civil society. And that is what we'll bring to the fore of the ministry through our research findings and other methods but to be honest, if I were to advise the Minister of Environment, I mean, you already had my advice. Ensure that the law is enforced, that nobody is above the law. Those houses that have been there, that are in the park, they should not be there. They should be confiscated. I'm sorry to say, but this is the reality. That's why sometimes we say other countries are moving on, because they are very strong on their laws and they make sure they enforce those laws to the letter. Okay. Otherwise, we are a country of just people who do not respect the law, because we think there's somebody at our back who is a political person, and so we'll do anything, because we know that there will be some respite from that political person. But really implement the law as it is. It has not changed. It is here. The Gazette is here. If you want, check the Gazette. Look at all the points that are in the Gazette and see who is in the land. Who is in that space. And if posse is in that space, get the posse out. Embargo. I'm not sure what do we do with those houses, but I think there are various ways that they can plan. Ansu is talking about new innovation. If we are confiscating those ones, why can't we find a way of making sure we get, we put our forests around them again, and make them into places where tourists can come and reside for a few days, go into the forest, and we get money. Those are alternative ways we can raise money. Let us use the forest to generate money, rather than using the forest to destroy it. Exploiting the forest to destroy it. That forest can generate money. There are many ways it can be done.
Yes, Mr. Kabadia is having me.
Well, I want to tell that the listener of the period that that statement is not correct. No staff of Guma Valley is involved in land grabbing. Guma has not been sitting down or folding its hand when it comes to deforestation issues. We have been one of the most vocal institutions when it comes to deforestation issues. We have to contend with land grabbers on a daily basis from all over our catchment, from Hastings, Regent, Sugarloaf, Takuyama or Takugama, Banga Farm, Sussex, number 2 River Community. On a daily basis, we get reports from our patrolmen and people are in the forest with power saw. We have to call the NPA, the National Protected Area Authority, together with our men, usually rush to those locations. If we could, we confiscate the power saw, arrest those men, but the next day you will see them again on the ground at some other location. So this is what as we have to contend in. Apart from the struggles we go to supply water to Freetown, we also have to become forest guards at the same time. But notwithstanding, we are acting that the Interministerial Committee is doing its bits. They say the wheels of government turns very slow, but it's indeed turns. We are hoping that actions will be taken to ensure that these people that, especially this the latest report that was tabled to the president in last year December, some of these recommendations inside that report will be implemented. People, houses that are to be demolished should be demolished, and like we said, there are other ways water supply can be produced and supplied to people. You can do it desalination, get water from the sea, take off the salt and treat and supply it to people, but that is very, very expensive, and it's also very energy intensive. Taking into consideration our own electricity supply in Freetown, that would be very challenging and very, very costly. So we rely on the forest primarily because it is the most cheaper source or cheaper alternative. So that's why we are calling on the people of the Western area. We know housing people need to have buildings or places to live, but at the same time, we do not have
safety.
And so, I mean, once you build your house, you need water inside that house. I mean, if we kill the forests that provide us with this most natural resource, I mean, we will all be left with, one day we wake up and the Guma Dam will be dry, and we will have to find alternative sources of water supply. It has happened in other places. Lake Chad, a very big lake in the Central African area, is now almost 90% dry. I mean, because these are some of the concerns people were raising, but it was not, they were not needed. In India, last year, Chennai State runs out of water because the lake, the source of water ran dry due to some of these issues that we are talking about here. In South Africa, 2 years ago, they have to ration water. People receive water once a week first, maybe an hour. People have to resort to, there was no water to flush toilet, there was no water to wash your plate, even to launder or take your bath. So these are some of the issues we are telling people about the use of cutting down the forest. So I mean, we want to appeal to the people of Leone. Like we said, housing development can take place, but it has to be in sync with other resources, so that we do not kill the egg, like I said, the chicken that lays the golden egg.
Continue to stay with us, Alikaba. And so, Mama, you are coming from the advocacy space. So, how can this interministerial committee be pushed, to go beyond words?
Yeah, I think Mr. Rahal nicely put it that we must be able to ensure that we have the voice of civil society included in those spaces, to be able to ensure that we are striking the balance between the very policy commitments that are being made within those spaces, and be able to ensure that they are being translated, and certainly having institutions that will be able to also compel them to action. It's very important. Perhaps what I will add is the fact that we need to constantly place the people at the heart of all of those decision-making processes, because yes, it's a good thing to have those spaces in place, but as long as we keep the people in mind and be able to ensure we place some level of urgency in being able to drive actions, it would mean more significantly, for the purpose it was established. And so that would be my recommendation. And perhaps lastly, is to be able to ensure that now that we having various coordination platforms and processes across the country, especially led at the district council levels, we must be able to start thinking how we protect the environment and by extension water sources. Because if water sources are drying in Freetown, for example, there is no doubt that one day we'll wake up, going to the provinces in search of water. And so it's important that we also start putting some of those measures in place in our discussions, in our deliberations around how we protect the environment, and most importantly, how we keep people healthy and alive. Because water, specifically, they say, is life, and it must be protected as a very vulnerable resource.
Okay. Now for the final set of text messages, I see a lot of them from Mr. Rahal. Thank you, Mr. Rahal, very much for your leadership and brilliant ideas to bring solutions in fighting deforestation and illegal activities contributing to climate change. The truth is, the new government needs to devise some effective strategies. There's some clarity now. The texter, it was a question, if you were, it was conditional, if you were the advisor for the ministry in charge. You have already answered that. Clarity has been done. The final one says, Mr. Rahal, on the livelihood perspective, what are some of the activities that you think community people should embark on in order to keep them still generating their income while protecting the forest?
That is one big elephant to deal with. We have close to 50 odd communities around the forest edge communities. And each one of those forest edge communities have people who are interfering in the forest. I remember back in 2010 when we worked with WHH in the first demarcation of the forest. Now this opportunity we looked at for ensuring that we provided, so to speak, livelihood options. And indeed we are able to do some, and there are successful outcomes. However, I always refer to these things as, it becomes a sequence. So one set of people have stopped, a new set of people will come in. So how do you deal with those dynamics, right? You help. For instance, we help with bakeries around and brought young people so that they can use the bakery and the expertise they had to produce bread. We had, I think, 4 communities that we established bakeries around, and Tumbo was one of those communities. And that helped the youths a lot. Three nurseries were also things that we helped. Now that it is now becoming a vogue, where even government can buy tree seedlings, and young people can be attracted, to ensure that they design their own tree nurseries, and people can buy tree nurseries from them. That's a good option. But honestly, the one thing I would say is more on education, because when people know, and we've started to see the results when we were working for just 6 months when we worked with communities, when we told them exactly the dilemma they will face as community people, and they saw it, they were the very people holding our hands. Let's go and talk to this person. Let's go and talk, because they saw the gravity, that will impact on them. Livelihood is good. It's nice to give the options. There are many options you can apply in the various communities, but you cannot give to everyone. That's where the problem will be. Livelihood normally is an individual thing. Collectively, it becomes a problem. Okay, so you have to be very. It takes real strategy to think through it, to work with the communities, to have what they want. You won't say, oh, let's go put community barrier. That's not livelihood. It's just some service, something that will provide some service. It will not solve the problem. But people want to make that bread and butter. They want to make sure more food is on the table. They want to make sure they can send their children to school. They want to make sure healthcare is taken care of. Okay. Now, I was speaking to young people in this area where they are producing sand, Jonobe, right? I told them, why are you doing this? I mean, you are creating more problems. So, bruh, if we left this, that forest will go. That was simple. But you see the forest right above Jonobe is lushy. But then if you say, oh, get away from sand mining, which is also a problem in itself, they tell you the forest is there. If we stop this, there's no other option but to go there. So these are things we need to also think about. I mean, putting up ecotourism things and encouraging communities to be part of those processes will also generate resources. Okay, there are examples. There are ample examples now along the forest. I mean, around the coast in Freetown. These are things that we can put measures we can put that can help people to leave what they are doing in the forest. It's not an easy thing to go and cut forest trees and make charcoal. It's not easy. Nobody tells you when I went to, and I having this conversation with this guy who was breaking the stone. I told him, say, Brad, look me hand. It's as hard as the rock itself, right? But I don't have an option. That's what they will tell you. There's no option. So it's not an easy thing. If we can find that way where they can go and get relatively easy money, then they will definitely not come there. Those who will come there are those who have a lot of money, who will go and create the problems and do the deforestation, bring in businesses or even put in structures. But honestly, those people around the forest edges, all they need is those little bit of incentives that will take them away from the forest.
Okay, many thanks. Brilliant submission there on alternative means. Yes, Alikaba, 30 seconds of parting shot.
Well, I just want to appeal to those that are involved in the deforestation issue that, deforestation leads to water shortage, landslide, flooding, and poverty. Basically, at the end of the day, Guma relies on the forest to collect, store, and treat water that we send to people. So basically, if we lose the forest, it means that we will not have water enough in sufficient quantities, and also the quality will be poor. That would be a problem for the residents of the Western area and Freetown in particular. So we encourage everybody to become a forest conservator, keep the forest intact so that we could have water to supply to the people of Freetown. Thank you very much.
Yeah, whether you are within government or outside of government, but you are keeping quiet about these very things that matters, and you are not taking action, whether you are cutting the tree or not, you are part of the problem. And we must be able to approach this with the whole of society approach in being able to safeguard the health and well-being of people and the environment, because this water is being used in communities, in households, in healthcare facilities, and a whole lot of other places. We must be able to protect this very precious resource.
Many thanks. That's it for Public Square. Many thanks to my guest, Executive Director, Vincent Joseph Raham, Director of Corporate Services, Guma Valley Water Company. By the way, congratulations to Alikaba, and also Ansumana Soko, Executive Director of WashNet. Many thanks to my production and technical teams on behalf of all of us here at Broadcasting House, New England. I am your host, Princess Gibson. Thanks for your time. Goodbye.